welcome to another Chat with Tim. Somebody asked me a couple weeks ago at our staff meeting about the challenges that people coming out of complex trauma have with humor. And I thought that was such a good question. And we talked about it for quite a while. And I thought I'd just make this short video about that. Because what I have seen over the years is humor can be so positive. And laughter, it's such an important part of life. It's, I think, part of what of our needs are. And I'm going to talk about it. But humor, often in complex trauma, is weaponized. It's a defense mechanism. It can be used in very unhealthy ways. So let me begin by talking about the benefits of laughter. Lots of research has been done on this, that there are many psychological benefits. A good belly laugh reduces hormones like cortisol and adrenaline in the body, and that's great for people who are stressed out or with trauma. It releases endorphins, the body's natural painkillers and mood boosters. It relaxes muscles. It improves circulation, which then reduces tension, physical tension. It then, because of that, it's helping you get into your parasympathetic nervous system, which then boosts your immunity by increasing immune cells and antibodies. So laughter resets your nervous system. So if you're in stress in your sympathetic nervous system, often a great laugh helps your vagus nerve get into the parasympathetic nervous system. And that is such a wonderful benefit. It's also great with emotional regulation. So often when people are processing overwhelming emotions, they need to take a little break from it once in a while, or else it just gets too overwhelming. And humor can provide just a little break that helps you regulate your emotions and get back to processing and not get overwhelmed by it. Or sometimes when you are really weighed down by grief, by just problem after problem, you need at times to just have a little bit of emotional distance from it, to gain some objectivity, to break out of some tunnel vision that's developing so that you don't get overwhelmed again. And so laughter can often just create a bit of emotional distance for a while to give your nervous system a break. And then laughter, it encourages playfulness. It increases your psychological flexibility. All of those are very good when it comes to regulating your emotions. But then they're finding that laughter is also great for social connection. So two people laughing together, it increases and strengthens the bond between those people. In a group where there's a lot of laughter, people tend to feel safer. They tend to feel like they belong, they fit in. Laughter encourages nonverbal attunement, emotional synchrony. So when you're laughing with somebody, there's a sense of, without words, you're being attuned to where they're at, to their nervous system. And then in groups, when a group is laughing together, the group is co-regulating each other. So the nervous systems are getting in sync with each other, creating this felt sense that we're okay. So if somebody in the group is dysregulated, as the whole group is laughing and they enter into it, it is helping them regulate their own emotions. But then they're also finding that laughter helps heal trauma. It's helpful in the healing trauma process. So many people, when they're in trauma, they go to freeze or dissociation. Laughter can help bring them out of that freeze dissociative place, back into the present. Laughter in that, bringing them back into the present, helps them reconnect with their body. It helps them reconnect with themselves. And then dealing with trauma can get overwhelming. It can just feel like a huge uphill climb that never is going to end. And laughter can just bring a bit of hope, a bit of lightness, a bit of relief in the middle of this arduous journey. So Peter Levine says, trauma is about not being able to move. You're frozen. But laughter moves us. It shakes, we shake, we breathe. Laughter breaks us out of that frozen place. They're also finding that laughter helps us gain perspective and insight. And I think that's what you find with many comedians who've gone through very, very hard times that they couldn't resolve. And so they just started looking at them from different perspectives. And it's basically, if you can laugh at it, you can survive it. If you can find something funny about this situation, you can endure it. And then for some, when they're in difficult situations and then they can just laugh, it kind of encourages almost a self-compassion, a humility. This is way too much for me. I'm just going to have a chuckle here, and it helps me with accepting my limitations, and it kind of gets me past some of my shame and some of my perfectionism. And so laughter can just help shift me out of a certain mindset, a certain perspective, to a better place to deal with stuff. But let me look at how does complex trauma kind of complicate humor for many, many people. And so he said it teaches children to use humor as a defense, or humor as a weapon, humor as a way to avoid pain, connection. And so all of the very healthy things that are necessary for a healthy life, the child has tried and they haven't worked in their complex trauma. They've only resulted in more pain. So connection brought more pain. Facing painful emotions weren't resolved and brought about more pain. And so all of a sudden now, the people that are supposed to be safe are hurting them. So humor now comes in to help them survive stuff that healthy tools are not working on. So that's where you get the child who adopts the role of the comedian or the jester. And so they sense constant tension in the house, unresolved anger. One of their reasons in becoming a jester or a comedian is, let's just keep everybody laughing and it'll improve the whole mood of this family. And maybe everybody will get along better if everybody is laughing. Or they do it because then they get validation. Dad likes having this child. Dad loves that child telling jokes and stories. And they get a lot of positive validation, which helps them feel important, which helps them feel respected. And then they can use it with their peers, because now their peers want to be their friends. So then now they feel they belong, they fit in, they're looked up to. And so it's solving their shame. It's a way to try to meet a whole bunch of needs without being vulnerable, without being open. And it seems to work. And so the danger of all of that, and we've done a video on that, is it can lead to a child later in life still afraid of vulnerability, still afraid of connection, still afraid of being open and serious about anything. They always have to try to keep everything funny, and it leads to problems in their relationships. The other thing that happens in many complex trauma families is that humor begins to be used as a weapon. Humor is always at the expense of someone else. So you tease somebody and you laugh, but it's at their expense. You haze people. You have initiation events, and people have very embarrassing type of things that they have to do, and everybody laughs, but it's at their expense. It's extremely humiliating for them. You tell embarrassing stories about people and everybody laughs, but it's at that person's expense. You highlight a person's physical feature or an idiosyncrasy in their personality and make jokes about it, and everybody laughs, but it's at that person's expense. So what I want you to see is humor now. You're trying to build yourself up and put everybody else down. You are shielding yourself against equal, intimate, trusting relationships where there's openness and vulnerability. You're putting yourself as superior to others. You're putting others down to build yourself up. There's a cruelty to it that gets put in terms of humor. And that takes me to the next thing, is that often in complex trauma, very hurtful shots are couched in humor. So sarcasm, if you look at it, is a shot couched in humor. And so in many complex trauma families, insults, put downs, taking a hurtful shot at somebody was made into a joke. And so it was very underhanded, very sly, sneaky. And so if a person goes, oh, that hurts you, oh, I'm just joking. They could make light of it, but the point is that the person got the point. And so it actually becomes this very underhanded way to express anger, to put others down, to hurt others. Again, there's an element of cruelty. And so a little bit more on that. Many people, because of their family setting, were afraid to express weak emotions. And so now when they're in a setting where somebody expresses vulnerability and cries, they make a joke about it. They're afraid to go there. They're afraid to sit in those emotions, to allow those emotions. And so they hide behind humor in order to protect themselves from unpleasant emotions that in their home are treated as weakness. In their home, they get punished for. The next one kind of builds off of all of these, and that is humor was often used to mask pain. So again, in complex trauma families, you weren't allowed to express pain. That would get you in more trouble. And so anger got punished, crying got punished, fear got punished, mocked, all of that. So children learn that if I can make people laugh, then I won't be hurt, okay? And if I laugh, then I don't feel pain. So if I can keep myself laughing, I won't feel pain. If I can make others laugh, they won't hurt me. So humor has this double agenda that helps protect the child. So now they joke about very serious issues to avoid any emotional connection to the pain of that issue. They minimize their own pain and make jokes about it in order to not feel it. So they use humor to constantly mask pain or avoid pain. I remember watching an interview Gabor Mate did with Theo Vaughn, and Gabor Mate talked about how studies have been done of many of the great comedians and how many of them come out of severe trauma where their mother neglected them, their mother abused them, and the only way they got positive affirmation, validation, felt any connection was through humor. So humor became a way of trying to avoid getting hurt more, trying to build some connection, trying to get respect and validation. And so this is a child that couldn't resolve the pain in healthy ways. They couldn't talk about it. They couldn't confront the real issues. And so they had to begin in the middle of their unresolved pain to try to find things that are funny. And they became very good at it. They could look at any situation, and now their brain could jump to looking at it from different perspectives and making something humorous out of it. So what I want you to see with that is there's something partly healthy, very healthy in being able to do that. But there's also something unhealthy. You're trying to meet needs through the wrong method. You're trying to avoid pain. You're trying to survive in an unresolvable situation. So let me take that a little bit farther. Humor for many in complex trauma then is a way to dissociate. It allows you to numb out and disconnect from reality. So I don't want to feel my pain. I don't want to be present in my body. So let's just laugh. That'll let me escape my situation, dissociate from it, and take a break. So that can lead to they can then laugh at very disturbing things, very traumatic things, because they don't want to feel that. So they just start laughing about it, making jokes about it. They can go to very dark jokes, all to avoid processing deep, deep pain. So their humor gets darker, more bizarre. And people go, whoa, that's a little pushing the envelope. That's a little unacceptable. But they will do anything to dissociate from pain, to dissociate from very, very hard, painful things that they do not want to process. And so what can happen with these people is that their go-to now in every situation. So if somebody's in pain, they start to laugh. Somebody's in pain, they make a joke. Anything that is uncomfortable, their go-to is humor. And that then can become very inappropriate. That then can hurt the other person. They don't feel seen. They don't feel heard. And that can do a lot of damage if you're a parent and your child's in pain and you go to trying to make it all funny. One of the things that I think you've probably seen as I've talked is that many used humor to solve their own shame. So deep inside, they didn't feel good enough. They didn't feel lovable. They didn't feel they belonged. They didn't feel they had any value. And so humor caused others to respect them. Others say, I want to be your friends. Others say, I want to connect with you. That made them feel better about themselves. It made them feel even superior to others. So humor became a way to try and solve their shame. And then, final one, humor for some becomes a way to try to manipulate others. So it's a way they get themselves in trouble, and to avoid accountability, they go, oh yeah, but I was only joking. I didn't really mean to do that. I was just joking. Or they're in trouble and there's no denying the facts that they purposely got into trouble. But now there's going to be consequences that are painful, so they use humor to try to wiggle out some of the consequences. Let's get this person who's mad at me, who's going to enforce these negative consequences, let's get them laughing and maybe they'll lighten up a little bit. Or for some, they use humor I'm going to soften you up. Then I'm going to manipulate my agenda into the conversation and I'll get what I want. So humor is used to try to get the other person into a good limbic brain state so now I can manipulate them more easily. Or in some, it's part of their dating ritual. I'll get let's say the girl laughing, and then that'll make her drop her guard. That'll make her feel safe. That'll make her feel closer to me. And then I can manipulate her to get what I want, sex or whatever. So humor can develop all kinds of unhealthy uses. How do we develop healthy humor? And this is part of the journey for people in recovery from trauma, is they have to learn to distinguish between healthy humor and unhealthy humor. When it's serving a good, healthy end and when they're using it as a weapon or as a shield in unhealthy ways. So let me just give you 5 very basic principles that you can begin to apply in your life. Number 1, humor needs to always still allow me to be open, honest, and vulnerable. If humor becomes a way of avoiding openness, honesty, and vulnerability, then I am misusing humor. I'm using it to dissociate, to protect myself. Everybody's life needs to be a balance between lots of serious times, but lots of laughter as well. Good, healthy humor. Our nervous system needs both. It's part of work and play. It's part of work and rest. Humor plays a key role in that. Anytime I use humor, it needs to always be done in love. Humor is never right if it's at somebody else's expense. I need to be able to learn to laugh at myself. Part of what happens with complex trauma is you often take yourself so seriously. I got to do everything perfectly. I got to please everybody. You got a strong internal critic. You get very down on yourself. It's so healing to get to a point of healing your shame where now you can go, oh, that was kind of silly. Oh, look at that. I walked around with my zipper undone. And have a chuckle at some of your idiosyncrasies, some of your foibles. That becomes an important part of healing. And then learning that you can use humor to actually help others. So there's times when a person is really, really struggling that I first listen to them. I meet them in their pain. I sit with them in their pain. But then I begin to realize, they need a bit of a break from their pain. So I go, I tell a story that gets them to laugh. Let's watch a movie that's a comedy. Humor helps then to give them a break from their ongoing processing of pain, regulate their emotions, helps them feel connected to somebody who cares. But again, I have to first make sure I don't lead with humor. I lead with meeting them in their pain and helping them there. So that's a little bit about humor. I hope it helps. Have a great day. Thank you.